Welcome to Demand and Disrupt, the Disability Podcast. Here, we will learn to advocate for ourselves and each other. This podcast is supported with funds from the Advocado Press, based in Louisville, Kentucky. Welcome, everyone. We are here with Keith Hosey. Keith Hosey has been a guest on Demand and Disrupt before. He is on the board of directors for the Center for Accessible Living, and he is now serving in his capacity as roving reporter for Demand and Disrupt. Hey, Keith, how are you?
Hey, Kimberly, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and I love the roving reporter title.
So you went out and did some interviewing for us, and so tell me where you went.
So I went to the Kentucky State APSE conference, which is the Association of People Supporting Employment First. It's a membership association. They used to be the Association of Professionals in Supported Employment. So this is a conference for individuals who are working in the field of helping people with disabilities find jobs.
I see. So tell us real quick, what are we talking about when we say supported employment?
Yeah, so supported employment is a type of employment support where an individual helps someone who has a disability gain and maintain a job. So in my day job, I work in supported employment actually, and I've done that for a long time. And so what we do is we meet with an individual, we get to know that person, we get to know their strengths, their abilities, what they like, what their goals are, what their aspirations are, and we work with them in tandem to help them gain a job. And then we help them maintain that job for a period of time until they feel stable in that job.
Okay, and this conference is a lot of people in various aspects of doing that kind of work, right?
It is. It's a good coming together and chance for collaboration between our state vocational rehabilitation staff, who are the individuals who are paying for some of these services, and our direct service providers, so the individuals that are actually out there in the field day to day helping people find jobs and then supporting them in their workplace. As well as some of the other ancillary groups that work around that field. So, for example, our interview today that we're going to be showcasing is with Protection and Advocacy, who is not involved specifically in supported employment, but has some roles around supported employment in the state of Kentucky.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So who are we going to be talking to today?
So we're going to be talking with my friend Beth Metzger, who is an employee of Kentucky Protection and Advocacy, PNA, is what sometimes people refer to that agency as. It's a state agency. I've known Beth for years now. I believe, we met, oh my goodness, we might even know each other for close to 20 years. She's been with Protection and Advocacy for a long time. She's a very knowledgeable person. I enjoy her company. I always enjoy her intellect, and she does a great job with everything she does there at Protection and Advocacy, and it's really a great group over there as well. I've had the pleasure of working with a number of people there, Protection and Advocacy.
Okay, and so before we hear your interview with Beth, I think we wanted to clear up a few acronyms and things, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me what do we got first?
Let's actually start with the Michelle P. waiver was mentioned in the interview. Our listeners may not know what the Michelle P. waiver is. Here in Kentucky, like many other states, we have what are called Medicaid waivers, 1915C Medicaid waivers here in Kentucky. And what those things do is someone's on Medicaid, they can utilize these waivers to get additional services to support them in the community. So Michelle P. waiver provides assistance to individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities to help them live in the community as independently as possible. And there's a menu of services under each of those Medicaid waivers. Other Medicaid waivers in the state of Kentucky, there's an acquired brain injury waiver, there's a home and community-based waiver, and then there's a supports for community living waiver, as well as another waiver that is called the Model 2 waiver.
So these are all ways for people who are on Medicaid to get extra supports, correct?
Absolutely. And the point of all of them are, other than the Model 2 waiver, I'm not as familiar with that. I believe that's more medically based as far as medical services. But all these other ones I can speak to, all of them, their purpose is to help individuals with disabilities get out into the community and become parts of the community with services such as, personal care if they need it, or behavioral supports if they need it, respite for caregivers, or community living supports where, you can have someone take you out, and if you want to start a hobby or you want to go to a social setting and meet people, they can kind of be your paid wingman.
Okay, excellent. And if any of our listeners feel like you might be those supports might be something that would help you, you can reach out to your nearest Center for Independent Living in Kentucky, and reach out to Center for Accessible Living. And if you're anywhere else, maybe reach out to Department for Community-Based Services or equivalent.
It's the Cabinet for Health and Family Services.
Okay, all right then. And now let's listen to Keith's interview.
I'm sitting here with Beth Metzger with the Kentucky State Protection and Advocacy Program, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what P&A does and how they're involved in the employment programs in Kentucky. Beth, welcome.
Thank you, Keith. Kentucky Protection and Advocacy was created as the state's federally mandated system to protect and promote the disability rights of folks in Kentucky. It came out of a revision to the Developmental Disabilities Act, and our office was created in 1975. We are physically located within the Public Defender's Office, which is kind of unusual because they don't handle civil cases and we don't handle criminal cases, but it actually works because we provide them with a lot of technical assistance, because quite a few of the individuals who are represented by public defenders are folks with disabilities. Our office is located in Frankfort, but we cover all 120 counties of the Commonwealth. All of our services are free, regardless of income. We can provide, and also regardless of citizenship status. We provide information and referral services, technical assistance, do educational trainings, and we are able to do some limited legal representation. I keep using the word legal because our office is considered as a law practice, but we're a bit unusual because we have both attorneys and non-attorneys like myself on staff. And amazingly enough, the attorneys and non-attorneys work very well together. So everything that we do is considered to be legally based. Everything that I handle is reviewed by at least one attorney to make sure that there is legal accuracy. And also, if there are any questions about whether or not something is covered by law, and specifically how, I can consult with the attorneys on staff. For those of you all who have ever heard of the Michelle P. waiver, that actually came about because of a settlement agreement between P&A and the cabinet for now the Health and Family Services. It was something else back when it was first filed. And the settlement came out of us filing a lawsuit against the cabinet over the Supports for Community Living waiver waiting list being incredibly long, and people were frankly dying before they got services. We never dreamed that Michelle P. would actually have a waiting list. But hindsight is 20/20 when it comes to that. Even though our office was created out of the Developmental Disabilities Act, we can provide our services to all people with every type of disability. It's basically cradle to grave. And folks with disabilities contact us, their family members, professionals. Well, we have providers, we have attorneys, law enforcement, you name it, people will contact us. And everyone who contacts us, they will not get sent directly over to an attorney or an advocate. We do have a process because we average over 200 calls a month. New calls. So, which is huge for a staff of 21, and that includes our support staff. So we do contact people within 3 business days, and if a situation is not considered as whatever's going on with the individual is not considered as being directly related to the person's disability, like someone with a disability who's going through a divorce. A divorce can happen to anybody. So our office is not able to provide representation on that. Unfortunately, there are other agencies that if folks contact them about that same issue, they'll say, oh, sorry, we don't do that, and that's it. We at least try to steer people in the right direction, and also understanding that as much as we would love to represent every individual, it just is not humanly possible with our resources. Now, when it comes to employment for folks with disabilities within the Commonwealth, we have our hands in a lot of things. We have a grant which is Protection and Advocacy for beneficiaries of Social Security. And that all of that mouthful basically means that if someone receives SSI or SSDI and they want to go back to work but are experiencing issues with getting on-the-job accommodations and so forth, they can contact us, and we can see about possibly opening a case and representing them with the employer to try to get reasonable accommodations. I spend an awful lot of my time talking to people about what reasonable accommodations are, and the fact that getting accommodations is a negotiation process. Just because a doctor writes a prescription for something does not mean that the employer has to do it. It's just like if a doctor did the same thing for a child in special education. Neither the employer nor the schools are required to fill prescriptions like a pharmacy would. And so I talk an awful lot with folks about that. I have cases right now where I am representing folks with their employers to get those reasonable accommodations. Sometimes it's a quick fix, other times it's not. And as long as the folks want us to be involved and what they're asking for is reasonable, I'll stick with them. Another way that we're involved with about employment too is the client assistance program, which gets involved if there are any types of issues a person may have, either with services through vocational rehabilitation or the Centers for Independent Living. That that program used to be housed within Voc Rehab, which is problematic in itself. The program was officially redesignated by Governor Beshear over to PNA, and that redesignation became final in September of 2021. Actually, it was September 11th of 2021. And I became the state's Client Assistance Program coordinator on March 1st of 2022. I have been involved. I've worked for PNA for over 20 years, so working with folks with disabilities to make sure that their rights are upheld is a long time dream and goal, and I frankly don't see myself being anywhere else. As for the Client Assistance Program, since I am in charge of the beneficiaries of Social Security grant and the Client Assistance Program, I'm able to do an awful lot in supporting folks with disabilities when it comes to employment. With the Client Assistance Program, I am able to provide representation to them with Voc Rehab, and which means that it's not like I go in and say, okay, we're going to sue you or anything like that. It starts with communication. In fact, I am federally mandated to try to resolve issues with Voc Rehab and the SILs at the lowest administrative level possible. And the number one thing that I have found in the little over a year that I've been doing this is that there's a breakdown in communication. And so for the most part, with the exception of a couple of cases, of a couple of incidents, issues have been successfully resolved within a few months. And some of them are just simply talking to the person's counselor. Other times it is actually representing people with an appeal to a denial. So that's how that works. I also have been I've created an employment rights training, an interactive training that I have taken on the road. I have focused on the sheltered workshops because we have 25 certificate holders, last time I checked, through the Department of Labor that allows these programs to pay subminimum wage to individuals with disabilities. And it's really interesting that the law that created that was from 1938. That law, it was created out of good intentions because there were all of these disabled war veterans who wanted to work, but nobody would hire them, and so the feds decided to create this law. It's the Fair Wages Standards Act, I do believe, and
Fair Labor Standards Act, right?
Yes,
Fair Labor,
yes, Fair Labor Standards Act. Sorry about that. I have lots of names of laws running around in my head, and you know, our lawmakers very rarely will pick short names for laws.
So I want to talk about this because not everyone knows that 14C certificates, there are 24, 25-ish agencies in the state of Kentucky, and there are a lot more across the U.S. who are legally allowed to pay people with disabilities under minimum wage because it's a very old law. As you said, it had good intentions. I want to ask you your perspective, both personally and protection and advocacy. What do you think it will take for Kentucky to end subminimum wage?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question, Keith. Kentucky PNA's stance and my stance are one and the same, and that is subminimum wage should not exist because everybody, regardless of disability status, guardianship status, whatever, has the right, and if they want to work, they have the right to try. And my office has the stance too, and also the National Disability Rights Network that our agency is part of, is that everyone, regardless of disability, has the right to earn at least minimum wage. And employers being able to provide that, or to pay less than minimum wage, well, first of all, it sends a terrible message to the individuals that they are less than. Also, while the folks are being provided or doing work for sheltered workshops for subminimum wage, we have to think about, on the other side of that, with the contracts, what businesses are contracting for this, and are they truly unable to pay people a living wage? Because what subminimum wage does is keeps people with disabilities in poverty. And it's like, okay, not only are you going to have to fight for services, fight for accommodations, fight for an accessible place to live, we aren't going to let you get out of poverty, and which is horrible. Absolutely horrible. Other states have completely abolished 14Cs. And from what we have seen is that it's like a two-prong approach. And of course, this would have to go through legislation. The first prong is to require everyone to be paid at least minimum wage. There are some certificate holders who do not pay sub-minimum wage. They pay minimum wage. Unfortunately, on the flip side of that, what's gone on with that is they have seen a decrease in their contracts. So, okay, higher wages, but less time worked. So that doesn't really help. But, with anything legislative, it has to be taken in baby steps. So first would be, okay, everybody is to be paid minimum wage. Second, and then, and only then, could it go forward with, okay, if you are unwilling to pay minimum wage, you won't exist as an employer. That's the way it has been successfully done in other states. And there are 56 or 57 protection and advocacy offices throughout the U.S. and states and territories, and all of us are in this fight. And through our national network, we are able to share legal information about what has worked and what hasn't worked. Now, call to action here, though. My agency is not allowed to lobby, but you are. So,
as an individual citizen,
yes,
all of us can call our elected officials.
Correct, absolutely. And honestly, sometimes what it takes is the volume. So if you have a group of friends who, you might be organized through a Center for Independent Living or what have you, or if you just have a group of friends, and you don't have to, the people who call legislators, they don't have to have disabilities. And one thing too about the 14Cs is that they are basically targeted for people with intellectual disabilities. And interestingly enough, I don't know if you know this or not, Keith, but the WIOA, the Work Incentives and Opportunities Act, does not allow a sheltered workshop to pay subminimum wage to a person who was under the age of 24.
I did not know that.
So if your listeners, if anybody out there is below the age of 24 and they are getting subminimum wage, please call P&A and we can see what we can do about rectifying that. And it may be that we would need to bring in the Kentucky Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division, since they are the ones who handle that. But that would be a violation of WIOA. And that knowledge that I'm passing along to you about the age, that is something that has been in the law, and there has been a recent clarification of that, an explanation of that. And so, but getting back to, they're not about contacting your legislators. We're not just talking about your local legislators. We're talking both state and federal. And have everybody that you know contact them and say, look, this isn't right, because people with disabilities have the right to earn just like everybody else, because we are worth something just like everybody else.
Wow. Thanks, Keith, for doing that interview for us. There was a lot of good information there.
Yeah, I really appreciated Beth's explanation of everything. I really couldn't have asked for a better explanation.
So I wanted to dig in a little bit. She talked about the subminimum wage issue. And I know that's an issue that is very important to you also. So can you tell me a little about that? What do I need to know?
Absolutely. So subminimum wage is something that has been around for a little while. Just a really quick history lesson here. The Fair Labor Standards Act, which was passed in, I think 1934, maybe. Somewhere around that time, had a clause in it. 14C was the clause. And it allowed for subminimum wage to be paid to individuals with disabilities. The idea behind it and the intention at the time were good. The idea was people with disabilities just couldn't work as well as non-disabled, but we'd love for them to be able to be some type of productive member of the society. So we'll allow for these certificates to go out where a company could hire people with disabilities who had just essentially 100% unemployment rate and give them a job and pay them a wage that, as they said then, was comparable to the production output value. So, at the time, it was probably innovative. It is 2023 right now. And it just doesn't jive anymore. The entire premise behind it is that people with disabilities can't contribute in a meaningful way to society in employment, and that's just not true. And we know it's not true. I'm a person with a disability, and I'm contributing into our workforce, and my job is to help people with disabilities do that as well. And I can tell you there's a whole lot of us out there pulling our weight. And the fact that this relic of legislation is still around, it's kind of, you buy those funny books in an airport of like outdated laws. And in Massachusetts, any hotel still has to, stable a horse of a traveler. It just doesn't make any sense in current day. But it's still on the books. And so that's something nationally that's still on the books.
And I can absolutely see why some employers would want to keep that on the books, right?
Yeah. So when your people who are producing are pennies on the dollar per hour, and your product is selling for, whatever going rate right now in our economy, you're going to make some good money probably. Unfortunately, it is on the backs of people with disabilities. And the whole point, and here's the other thing that often gets lost in the conversation. The whole point of this 14C and laws have changed, like formerly, Medicaid and other entities, were not aimed at competitive employment. The idea was that someone can build skills and then move into competitive employment. So the idea was never that someone would go into a subminimum wage job and stay there. The intent was they would get skills they need and they would go into a competitive job. That's not what we see on the whole scale of places that utilize 14C.
Really? Is that right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I personally find offensive about these sort of laws is that, and again, there's the history aspect, and that's all well and good, fine. But like you said, this is 2023. I personally find these laws offensive because what this law says is that a disabled person is, just by being disabled, producing less. That means that we are working more slowly, that we are doing less than any person who is non-disabled. And that just sucks because this law doesn't compare any other kind of people. It doesn't compare people by race or gender or religion, nor should it. I do not say it should in any way, but it's equivalent to saying, people with blonde hair, they work less, or any number of things. And by that standard, that is discrimination. Federally, by the federal standard, that is discrimination. And I simply do not understand why these laws are still allowed to be in operation. I mean, do you know why? A good lobby, maybe? What are we talking?
Well, so right now it truly is state by state. I think the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, is a national law, but the way it is translated down is really state by state. So there are states that have decided that they are going to phase out sub-minimum wage. There are states that have said no. And to your point, yes, what this says is that people with disabilities, we are not whole, right?
Right. Yep.
There's no way that we can be as whole as a non-disabled person. And that's just not true. So there are states that have said, no, this is wrong. The litmus test is you put in a different marginalized group, and if you think it's probably a racism or sexism or anything like that, then it probably is for whichever group is they're doing that to, right?
Right. Yeah.
So for sure, but there's, and it's state by state right now. I do, Beth kind of had a call to action at the end there, that it really is, it's up to us to contact our legislators, not just our state legislators, our federal legislators, because it is a federal law, and we can get it changed on the federal level with enough support, and that would then make sure that all the states do it too. But on a state level, we can also advocate for state laws. There are states that have phased this out: Virginia, Connecticut, Minnesota, New Hampshire, New York, and there's a few others that are in the process of phasing it out, including, I think, Tennessee, which is our neighbor, obviously. Kentucky, interestingly enough, I looked this up. Kentucky had a failed bill last year. It was House Bill 471. It died in committee, which means that that's like where it starts, right?
Mhm.
So they wanted to change it to increase the minimum wage. It was tied to increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. So, it's hard to tell if it died. It probably died because of that in the legislature,
Mhm.
but it did include getting rid of subminimum wage.
So, I mean, Beth's call to action, there's a groundswell of support. We just have to keep at it. And the way to keep at it is to keep calling or writing, emailing, whatever, sending, social media, whatever is your preferred way to reach out to your elected officials. Keep
Yeah.
doing that, because they are accountable. They are accountable to us because we put them there and we put them in those jobs. And so they have to be accountable, and they can only really, they are accountable to you, and they need to tell you why. So write them, tell them what you want, and then ask them why they haven't done that. Why haven't they phased this out? So yeah, that was a really great interview with Beth. What was her last name? Say again.
Beth Metzger.
And if someone wants to get in touch with Protection and Advocacy, how might they do that?
So their main office is in Frankfurt. They have a phone number. Their toll-free number is 1-800-372-2988. They also have an email address, which is KYP, the word and A inquiry@gmail.com. So that's KYP inquiry@gmail.com. You can also look them up on their website. It's kypa.net, and you can contact them through there.
Okay. And I will put all of those things in the show notes, and I will add links to where people in Kentucky can find lists of their elected officials. So thanks so much, Keith. Thank you for being our roving reporter, and everyone else, stay tuned for part 2 next time when Keith talks to more people at the conference. So thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Kimberly.
If you like the podcast, remember to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you really like the podcast, we'd love it if you could leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. That helps more people to find us. If you really, really like the podcast, then please tell someone about it, either in person or send them an email or just share the link on social media. Thank you all. Every bit helps, and it makes a huge difference for us. If you'd like a transcript, please send us an email to demandanddisrupt@gmail.com and put transcript in the subject line. Thanks to Steve Moore for helping us out with transcripts. Thanks to Chris Unkin for our theme music. Demand and Disrupt is a publication of the Advocado Press with generous support from the Center for Accessible Living located in Louisville, Kentucky. And you can find links to buy the book, A Celebration of Family, Stories of Parents with Disabilities, in our show notes. Thanks, everyone.
Say you've seen a change in me. Just for once I think I would agree. We both know there's a difference. We've had our curtain call, and this time the writing's on the wall. what will be, will be. Disregard for good to set us free. There's just no way of knowing if love lives anymore. We'll turn out the light, then close the door. We tried to make things better, repair and rearrange things, but each and every letter spells out the need for us to open up.